Happy Wednesday. To get you ready for your exam that's due on Sunday, I'm going to be discussing the two articles that we read for last week and worked on in the discussion board. I don't respond individually in the discussion board for a couple of reasons. First, I like to organically let the conversation flow out between students, just the way it would in a classroom. I try not to guide that conversation because it's organic and it needs to flow the way it's going to. That said, just like in a classroom, there are problematic reads and problematic understandings that I need to address so that you're adequately prepared for the exam that you're going to do on Sunday. And so what I tend to do is take those discussions in aggregate and talk about them in aggregate so that I'm not calling out particular students, which can feel shaming and yucky, quite frankly. So I'm going to talk about each of the articles that we discussed for last week and some of the things that you should have noted, maybe some common misunderstandings that took place. And then that hopefully will prepare you in your thinking about the article that you're discussing in your exam this coming Sunday. So we'll start with the article that was written in part in Romanian and in part in English. I'd like you to first note that there's no translator listed, and that means that these authors, these Romanian researchers, wrote their own article in English as well as in Romanian. So when you're reading it, it should send some alarm bells off, like why is this language so simplistic compared to the other readings that we've done? Part of the answer is you're reading it in the author's second language. And so those authors are not going to communicate as effectively in their second language as they do in their first. It's going to make the reading feel a little strange. It's going to make the reading feel a little bit informal compared to what it would normally feel like. And that informality should send an alarm bell off in your head. Another thing you want to take into account with that article is that their sample size is absolutely ridiculous for American research. You should have looked up whether or not this was a peer-reviewed article, and it is. It's from a peer-reviewed journal. But it's peer-reviewed in a culture that's very different from ours and that has different review standards as well as different research standards. So it's not that this isn't peer-reviewed work. It is the case that they make claims and set up their research in ways that are not appropriate and would have never passed either peer review or internal review board here in the United States. Sample size of 8, ludicrous. Lack of demographic difference in the sample size they had, absolutely wouldn't fly here. Claims about what they can definitely now know for sure without any question, never going to be how it's done in American research. Because in American research environments, you're always saying this contributes to our conversation in this way, and here are all the things we still don't understand. Because that's really more realistic than we've proven with 8 people that Kairoshi syndrome, which is Japanese in origin and totally culturally constrained, has now decided to show up in Romania. That's a hard place to get to. And these authors go there not because they're bad, but because they're under a different level of obligation socially and culturally as far as their research and their conclusions about their research are concerned. Why do they both have the same first name? This always cracks me up. How many people have the name John in the United States? It's just a common name in Romania. It's basically the Romanian version of the name Mary. So a lot of students get weirded out that these authors have the same first name. It's not nefarious. It's just a common name. Some other things you want to take into account. You needed to look up what Kairoshi syndrome was. If you were one of those folks who said, this totally makes sense to me because in America we work way too hard, America has no instances of Kairoshi syndrome. Kairoshi syndrome is something that they have not adequately identified even in Japan, let alone extrapolated it out to other cultures, let alone moving it from collectivist cultures where people feel compelled by their social standing to work 120 hours a week, and then to an individualistic culture like the United States where we gripe if we have to work more than 40 hours a week for most of us. That doesn't mean that Americans don't work hard or don't work more than 40 hours a week. They absolutely do. What they do not do is drop dead of starvation, stroke, or heart attack because of their inability to go outside of their work environment for significant hours a week. That's not to say people don't drop dead of a heart attack because they work too hard and stress themselves out. That's not the same as Karoshi syndrome. So you needed that base in understanding what they were even talking about to be able to adequately respond to what you thought about Romanian researchers studying that phenomenon in Romania and what they found there. Another thing you want to do is know what the heck Romania is. So I had a student in one of my on-ground classes who was like, it's in Asia. No, it's really not. So you need to look up Romania. Give 10 minutes to the Wikipedia page on Romania. Yes, Wikipedia is supposedly not a reliable source. It's not if you're making an academic argument. There isn't any reliable source there. But they use sources, and those sources usually are reliable. And you trying to understand, like, what is Romania, where is it, what language do they speak, and how do they operate, Wikipedia is going to give you enough information for that. So you need to spend a little time understanding Romania, what crises it might have faced that would be parallel to the crisis that was referenced in the article about Japan facing after World War II. Can you draw any parallels there that would help you understand why they decided to do this research in Romania on Karoshi syndrome? And once you've got all that in aggregate, once you've understood the article from all those different perspectives, then it's appropriate to get to the end of it and say, this is interesting, but it doesn't seem like it could be replicated, which matters when you're doing academic research, and it doesn't seem like it's in line with all the other things that I've read in terms of how it approaches its hypothesis and proves its points. So I'm going to stop there and come back and do the next article in a separate video so that you're able to watch these videos relative to the articles that you're actually looking at. And I'll post them back to back, but that way you don't have to watch all of the information to dig in on any article and how you might have misunderstood it. So see you in just a minute.